Have you ever experienced something like this? You're in an argument. Someone says something sharp, and you freeze. In that moment, your mind goes blank. You nod, you move on, maybe you even lose the point. But later that night, lying in bed, the perfect response suddenly appears in your head. Clear, calm, intelligent. And you think, why didn't I say that? Or maybe you've walked out of a store with something you didn't actually need. It sounded reasonable at the time. The salesperson was confident. The discount felt urgent. The logic seemed solid. Only later did you realize you were persuaded, not convinced. Or maybe you believed a piece of information simply because it sounded logical, confident, well-structured. It made sense. Until you discovered it wasn't true at all. If any of this sounds familiar, the problem is not that you're not intelligent. The problem is that nobody really taught you how to think. School teaches you how to answer questions. Life requires you to question answers. Let's redefine something important. Being smart is not about IQ. It's not about degrees. It's not about reading dozens of books and remembering big words. Real intelligence is much more practical than that. Smart means how you process information when everything feels noisy. Smart means how you respond when your emotions are triggered. Smart means how you make decisions when you are under pressure, rushed, or uncertain. Some people talk a lot, but reveal confusion. Others speak very little, yet every sentence feels precise. The difference is not vocabulary. It's control. There's a simple concept that explains a lot about this. Your brain has two general modes of thinking. One is fast, automatic, emotional. It reacts quickly. It likes certainty. It jumps to conclusions. It's useful for survival, but dangerous for judgment. The other is slower, deliberate, analytical. It questions. It checks. It tolerates uncertainty for a few seconds longer. It asks, wait, what is actually happening here? You can think of it this way. The fast mind reacts. The slow mind reflects. When most people speed up, smart people slow down. When others rush to speak, they pause. When others react emotionally, they observe. When others want to win the moment, they want to understand the situation. That's the real difference. So this video is not about looking intelligent. It's about building control over your thinking. You'll learn how to think independently instead of following noise. How to manage your reactions instead of being controlled by them. How to learn deeply instead of consuming endlessly. And how to speak less but say more. Because real smartness is not about volume. It's not about showing off. It's not about being the loudest person in the room. Smartness is not noise. It's control. Now let's move into something practical. If intelligence is control, then the first place you build control is in how you handle input. Because we live in a noisy world. Notifications, opinions, news, social media, family advice, workplace politics. Everyone is talking. Very few are thinking. The truth is simple. If you cannot think clearly, it's usually because you are overloaded. First, listening as cognitive power. Most people believe speaking makes them look smart. In reality, listening makes you smarter. When you talk, you repeat what you already know. When you listen, you collect what you don't. Listening increases your processing power. It gives your brain more data before it makes a decision. Smart people don't listen to reply. They listen to understand. That difference alone changes conversations. Think about arguments. Many people don't actually hear the other person. They are simply waiting for their turn to attack. Their mind is preparing a defense while the other person is still speaking. That is not listening. That is rehearsing. Real listening requires control. Here are two simple techniques that immediately upgrade your thinking. The 3-second pause rule. When someone finishes speaking, don't respond instantly. Count silently. 1, 2, 3. That tiny pause forces your emotional brain to slow down and allows your logical brain to activate. It prevents impulsive replies. It creates clarity. The paraphrasing technique. Before giving your opinion, summarize what the other person said. For example, so what you're saying is, this does two things. First, it forces you to truly process the information. Second, it reduces conflict because people feel heard. And when people feel heard, they become calmer, and the discussion becomes smarter. Listening is not passive. It's mental discipline. Second, cognitive bias awareness. Even if you listen well, your brain still has shortcuts. These shortcuts are called cognitive biases. They help us make fast decisions, but they also distort reality. Let's look at 3 very common ones. Confirmation bias. You naturally search for information that supports what you already believe. If you think a certain political side is wrong, you'll find articles proving it. If you believe a product is good, you'll notice positive reviews and ignore negative ones. Your brain wants to feel correct, not challenged. Availability heuristic. You judge how common something is based on how easily you remember examples. If you see news about airplane crashes repeatedly, flying suddenly feels dangerous, even though statistically it's very safe. The more dramatic something is, the more available it feels in memory, and the more your brain exaggerates it. Emotional reasoning. This is when you believe something is true because it feels true. I feel ignored, so they must not respect me. I feel insecure, so I must not be good enough. Feelings are real, but they are not always facts. You see these biases everywhere. On social media, people share posts that confirm their beliefs. In family arguments, people defend opinions emotionally rather than logically. In news cycles, dramatic stories dominate attention because they are memorable. So how do you protect yourself? Ask 2 simple questions whenever you encounter information. What evidence supports this? What evidence challenges this? The second question is the powerful one. Most people never ask it. When you actively search for opposing evidence, you train your brain to think independently. Third, build a mental filtering system. In a noisy world, intelligence is not about absorbing everything. It's about filtering. Smart people constantly run information through 3 quiet questions. Is this useful? Is this true? Is this necessary? If it's not useful, why store it? If it's not verified, why believe it? If it's not necessary, why react to it? Not every opinion deserves your attention. Not every criticism deserves your response. Not every trend deserves your energy. Once you begin filtering input, something powerful happens. Your mind becomes less crowded. Your decisions become cleaner. Your emotions become calmer. You stop reacting to every stimulus and start choosing what enters your thinking space. And here's the deeper truth. Most confusion is not caused by lack of intelligence. It's caused by uncontrolled input. Once you control what enters your mind, you begin to control how your mind works. Once you control input, you control thought. Now let's go deeper. Because clear thinking is impossible without emotional control. Here's a truth most people don't like to hear. High IQ without emotional intelligence can actually be dangerous. You can know a lot. You can read a lot. You can win arguments. But if you cannot manage your emotions, you will sabotage your own intelligence. You'll say something in anger that destroys trust. You'll make a decision in fear that limits your growth. You'll choose pride over learning. Real intelligence is not just mental. It's emotional. There's a simple neuroscience explanation behind this. Inside your brain, there is a small structure called the amygdala. Its job is survival. It reacts fast to threats. When you feel attacked, embarrassed, rejected, or disrespected, the amygdala activates instantly. It doesn't wait for logic. It pushes you to defend, attack, escape, or freeze. This is sometimes called an amygdala hijack. Your emotional brain takes control before your rational brain has a chance to speak. On the other hand, your prefrontal cortex is responsible for reasoning, planning, evaluating consequences. It's slower, but wiser. When you pause, breathe, and think, you are giving the prefrontal cortex time to come back online. The problem is not emotion. Emotion is human. The problem is reaction without awareness. So how do you train emotional intelligence in real life? First tool, name it to tame it. When you feel something strong, instead of reacting immediately, label it clearly. Say to yourself, I am feeling angry. Or, I am feeling insecure. Or, I am feeling embarrassed. This may sound simple, but research shows that labeling an emotion reduces its intensity. When you name it, You move from being inside the emotion to observing it. You create distance. And distance creates control. Second tool, the 90-second rule. Emotion has a biological wave. When triggered, chemicals in your body rise quickly. But if you don't feed the emotion with stories and thoughts, that chemical reaction naturally begins to calm down within about 90 seconds. The problem is that most people replay the trigger in their head again and again. They add fuel. They imagine arguments. They repeat the insult. That keeps the emotion alive far longer than necessary. Next time you feel triggered, try this. Breathe slowly and wait 90 seconds before speaking. You'll be surprised how much clearer your mind becomes. Third tool, right before you reply. When you receive a message that angers you, don't respond immediately. Open your notes. Write exactly what you want to say. Don't filter it. Get it out. Then wait. Read it again later. Edit it. Most of the time, you will delete half of it. Writing releases emotion safely. Speaking releases it publicly. Here's the important reframe. Being smart does not mean being cold. It does not mean suppressing feelings. It means having disciplined emotions. Smart people still feel anger. They just don't let anger decide for them. Smart people still feel fear. They just don't let fear shrink their decisions. Smart people still feel hurt. They just don't let pride turn hurt into destruction. Imagine someone criticizes you in a meeting. A reactive mind interrupts, defends, becomes louder. A disciplined mind listens, pauses, and asks, "Can you clarify what you mean?" One response escalates conflict. The other builds respect. Imagine making a major decision while angry. Quitting a job. Ending a relationship. Sending a message. Emotional decisions feel powerful in the moment, but often create regret later. Intelligent people know one rule. Never make permanent decisions based on temporary emotions. Emotional intelligence is not about never reacting. It's about choosing when to react. It's about understanding that just because you feel something doesn't mean you must act on it immediately. Clarity begins when emotion stops running the show. And once you master that, your thinking becomes sharper, your words become stronger, and your presence becomes calmer. Clarity begins where emotion stops running the show. Now let's talk about how to actually build a sharp mind. Because intelligence is not just about avoiding mistakes. It's about training your brain to go deeper than average. First, deep reading versus fast reading. Many people read a lot, but think very little. They finish books quickly, underline half the page, and move on. It feels productive, but very little changes. Deep reading is different. It's slower, sometimes uncomfortable, but transformative. One powerful method is active recall. Instead of rereading a paragraph again and again, close the book and ask yourself, what did I just learn? Try to explain it without looking. If you can't explain it, you didn't understand it deeply. This forces your brain to retrieve information instead of just recognizing it. Retrieval builds memory far stronger than passive review. Another technique is what's often called the Feynman method. After reading something complex, try to explain it in simple language, as if you were teaching a 12-year-old. If you need complicated words to explain it, you probably don't fully understand it yet. Simplicity reveals clarity. Then there's the upgraded 3-2-1 reflection method. After finishing a chapter, write down 3 key ideas that mattered most. Then write 2 questions the chapter made you think about. Finally, write 1 action you will apply in real life. Not someday. Today. This turns reading into behavior, not just information. Smart people don't read to finish books. They read to upgrade thinking. Second, intellectual discomfort. Most people avoid ideas that slow them down. If something feels difficult, they skip it. If a book is challenging, they abandon it. If a topic confuses them, they move on. But smart people seek cognitive stretch. They understand that mental growth feels uncomfortable. If everything you read feels easy, you are not growing. Choose topics that make you slow down. Philosophy, systems thinking, psychology, economic history. Learn things that force you to reread sentences. At first, you may feel stupid. That feeling is not weakness. It's expansion. The brain grows when it struggles. Third, build a clear problem-solving framework. Smart thinking is not just about ideas. It's about solving real problems. Here is a simple structure you can apply to almost anything. Step 1. Define the real problem, not the surface symptom. If you're always stressed, the problem may not be too much work. It might be poor boundaries or unclear priorities. Step 2. Break it down. Divide the problem into smaller parts. What can I control? What is outside my control? What information am I missing? Step 3. Generate at least 3 possible solutions. Not one. When you only look for one solution, you trap yourself. Multiple options create flexibility. Step 4. Execute one clearly. Take action. Thinking without action creates anxiety. Step 5. Review. What worked? What didn't? What system can I build to prevent this issue again? This process turns chaos into structure, and structure builds confidence. Fourth, let's connect this to your English growth, because this channel is not just about mindset. It's about practical communication. Clear thinking improves clear speaking. When your thoughts are structured, your sentences become structured. Instead of long, chaotic explanations, you begin to speak in short, clear units. For example, instead of saying a long, confusing paragraph, you might say, there are 3 reasons. First, second, third. That's structured thinking becoming structured language. Practice explaining complex ideas in simple English. Take a concept like emotional intelligence and describe it in 5 simple sentences. Or summarize a book chapter in 1 clear paragraph. This trains both your brain and your language. Short, structured sentences are more powerful than long, messy ones. You don't sound intelligent by using complicated words. You sound intelligent by being clear. Here's a small daily exercise. Choose one idea you learned today and explain it out loud in simple English. Record yourself. Listen. Improve it. That single habit sharpens both thinking and fluency. Because intelligence is not built by endless consumption. It's built by deep processing. And that brings us to the transition that matters most. You don't become smart by consuming more. You become smart by processing better. Now we arrive at the most important part. Not techniques. Not frameworks. Not tools. Identity. Because long-term intelligence is not built from information. It's built from how you see yourself. Most people say, I want to be smart. But that sentence keeps intelligence in the future. The shift is subtle but powerful. Instead of saying, I want to be smart, say, I am becoming someone who thinks before reacting. That changes behavior immediately. When you identify as someone who pauses before responding, you pause. When you identify as someone who questions information, you question. When you identify as someone who reflects before deciding, you reflect. Identity drives habits. Habits drive outcomes. If you want long-term intelligence, follow 3 principles. First, slow down before big decisions. Major decisions made in emotional states are rarely wise. Career moves, relationship endings, financial risks, public responses. Give your logical brain time to participate. Sleep on it. Walk on it. Write about it. Smart people are not slow in life. They are slow in judgment. Second, improve 1 mental skill per month. Don't try to upgrade everything at once. Choose one focus. Listening deeply. Managing anger. Reading actively. Solving problems structurally. Practicing clear speech. 1 skill, 30 days. Depth beats intensity. Over 1 year, that becomes 12 real upgrades. Third, stay curious longer than others. Most people stop questioning once they feel comfortable. Smart people stay curious even when they feel certain. They ask 1 more question. They read 1 more perspective. They explore 1 more angle. Curiosity keeps the mind flexible. And flexibility keeps intelligence alive. Let's make something clear. You don't build intelligence to feel superior. You build it to feel stable. Not to dominate conversations, but to avoid being manipulated by them. Not to prove you're right, but to avoid wasting years chasing the wrong path. Not to win arguments, but to protect relationships from impulsive reactions. Being smart is quiet power. It's the ability to sit in a room full of noise and remain clear. It's the ability to feel emotion without being ruled by it. It's the ability to speak less, but say something that matters. And remember, you don't need to become a genius overnight. You just need to reduce chaos in your thinking. If this message resonated with you, like this video if you choose clarity over noise. Subscribe to Inspire English Stories if you want to keep upgrading your thinking and your English together. And before you leave, write one sentence in the comments. One thinking habit I'm changing is ____odd. Make it real. Make it specific. Because being smart is not about knowing more. It's about needing less chaos to make better decisions.